Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax thinks Cardassians like their politics complex. Major Kira is the closest thing to family Tekeni Gamor has left. And Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you killed Tekeni. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc.
Wow. I think our first South Park reference there. Sorry, Matt and Trey.
There's somebody out there that just said, "You bastard," but it wasn't you.
No, I didn't. I didn't jump on that. I'm good. How you doing?
Awesome. Thanks. Everybody at home, today we are doing a review of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 19, Ties of Blood and Water. The story is by Edmund Newton and Robin L. Slocum. Teleplay is our good friend, Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolf, and directed by Avery Brooks. This is going to be a fun one.
That's a lot of good information there.
Also, very quickly, we'd like to give a shout out to our good friend, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. She's got a lot of things going on in her life. It's just such a maelstrom of things for everybody, but especially her right now. So we want to give a shout out to Dr. Sue. We love you, and we can't wait to see you back in the free-for-alls.
Absolutely. We do love you, and we are always wishing well for you, and our prayers and thoughts are with you.
100%. One final thing, obviously, what am I thinking? I'm wearing an awesome shirt made by Cirroc's sister, Cirroc's sister Merone. The website is called Abyssinian Kiosk. You can find that in the description box below. You can find the link there. All kinds of really cool designs, Ethiopian, East African, and African in general. Some of them are Star Trek related. Some of them just look awesome. So check those out, Abyssinian Kiosk.
Yeah, thank you guys for all your support and love over the time that we've been doing it together. So definitely good stuff. But yeah, let's get into this episode.
Right. It's everybody. It's
blood and water.
It's your favorite time of the week, guys. It's time to party. We're going to talk about Star Trek. Ties of Blood and Water. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, my initial thought was kind of like a quarter to halfway through the episode. I was a little bit saying this episode is slow for me. I couldn't pinpoint exactly where it was. I think it was just kind of the unfolding of the story. A lot of the times we see them trying to cram so much story into these dialogues, into these scenes with these characters. And in this one, I kind of anticipated half of the story once they, started rolling into it. So I didn't need that kind of drawn out exposure of what the past was and what it was about. So it was a little slow for me at the start.
Yeah. Do you remember Legate Gamor? That was the episode in which Kira woke up as a Cardassian, and she met her father that was supposedly, bringing her back or whatever from being a spy. She was a Cardassian spy pretending to be a Bajoran. And for a moment there, she started to believe it, and she thinks he's really cool, and turns out he's a really nice guy. And the real person was Ileana, the real Cardassian lady. That was when, who was it? Sisko walks in with the duffel bag, and he throws the duffel bag behind the Cardassians, and it turns into Odo, and he beats him up or whatever.
Yes.
But anyway, so this guy is back to Tekeni Gamor. And, I kind of feel the same way, where he comes back, and at first you say, oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. We get to follow along in that story. But then you're kind of like, okay, so let's move it forward. Where's this going, And spoiler, the end was, I was just like, okay, this is where it's going. And where it's going is a beautifully written ending and beautifully performed ending by Nana. I actually kind of went back and watched the way she performed and formed in lines. Sorry, I think I have a microphone issue there. How's that?
Little echo. Yeah, we're okay.
Great. But yeah, maybe I should go back and redo how I performed that last line there. But
sound. No, I think that's why I said the first half. I didn't.
Yeah.
I kind of view this episode as a tale of two halves. And the first half of it was a little bit slow for me, and I was like, okay, get on with it. I get it. I felt like I've seen this story somewhere before about somebody coming to die or somebody dying, or we know they're about to die. I can't put my finger on exactly which episode it's been, but I feel like I've seen somebody on their deathbed several times in this show. So
yes.
So in that regard, I wasn't exactly like, oh, wow, I'm blown away. This is kind of something that's been repeated. So they needed to get me on the hook a lot faster and with a kind of a different twist, or introduce it with a, quicker and get to it. So that's why I felt like the first half of it was slow. Now, once the second half of it, I would rate differently. I would look at it and say, okay, well, they got a lot of scenes with her and her father. You mentioned the final scene with Nana as Kira. I thought she knocked that out the park. I also like the interaction with Ducat and Sisko at various points during the second half. And of course, I always a big fan of Jeffrey Combs. So the episode began for me when Jeffrey Combs showed up.
Well, that's the basic rule for every episode. Like we could just say there should be like a Jeffrey Combs factor of like how an episode goes bink. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when Jeffrey Combs shows up and everybody else is like, well, what about the rest of us? Well, it's Jeff Combs, whatever.
I mean, yeah, it was okay up until then, but then when Jeff shows up, then you're like, oh, this is about to get interesting. This is going to be, a performance to watch, and this is going to be, charming. He brings this level of charm and wit to his character that elevates the tone and elevates the conversation, elevates the quality of the production. And, hats off to Jeffrey Combs. We'd love to have him on the show and talk about his performances and his characters. But he is exceptional and remarkable at playing these characters that he plays. Wei Yun in particular is my favorite because it's just he's so in control and so elegant about how he's in control. It's a refined kind of manipulation that's different than the brute force that we see with Ducat or some of the other characters who are also conniving. He is more refined at it and kind of graceful about it.
And since we're moving into Wei Yun, to me that was almost like the subplot. It was almost like the B story, even though it was one main story, but it felt like, because there was something that happened. I didn't remember when it was or where it was in Deep Space Nine, but there is a moment, and it happens in this episode, where we are explained why Wei Yun keeps coming back. Because as we all know, his first appearance, he dies. And the writers have gone on record saying, what the hell have we done? We killed a character that was played so interestingly by this Jeff Combs fella. And so they decided, here's a way to bring him back. And to me, that moment really created the Vorta, because we already kind of had an idea what they were and where they were going. And Jeff Combs, obviously, we know, took it to a different level. And then now they've created more of a story about cloning and about Wei Yun the fourth being killed. And this is Wei Yun the fifth. And there's just so much more depth to these aliens now that we've learned so much more. And I wondered, it seemed as though Jeff played Wei Yun number 5 differently than he played Wei Yun number 4 a little bit. Like this one was more jovial. This one was more excited to play games. He says, I love games, and he just, And I do wonder, and yeah, if we can get him on the show, we should ask him, did he deliberately try to change how he portrayed each Weyoun slightly differently? Same genetic makeup, but the experiences might have made a different type of person. I don't know. Did you catch any of that?
I did catch a slight subtle difference in the way he played the character, and I thought that the line that explained the cloning was such a throwaway. It was like, it felt like a big, like, wow, this is big information here, and he threw it away very casually. Oh no, and which was great, which is great, because they explained away why we just saw a guy who's dead. It's kind of like it's the opposite of what we saw with Shax in Lower Decks, right? It's like
yes, it is the very opposite. Yeah, right. Where they beat it to death.
They beat that thing to death, and they made the whole thing about it. In this situation, he was like, that was just, oh, you didn't know?
Yeah, where have you been?
Yeah, like, I thought you knew. That's how we conduct business. It's better for business. And it was such a light throwaway to why we get to see this character reemerge. But he also played it like you said, there was a certain levity to it. There was a little bit more of a humor to it. I felt like the charm factor was even increased to a higher level. He seemed very likable. Like, if I was Sisko, in Sisko's shoes in those moments, I would kind of warm up to him and say, hey, since you're in charge, let me deal with you, since
that's a good point.
Your buddy over here who's trying to tell me he deserves all these titles and he's the emperor, Lofton, whatever he was.
Sultan.
I forgot the list, but then he even said emissary at one time. Really to rub it in on Sisko.
Okay, well, since we're going there, I just happened to write that part down. When he says. Yes. Ducat says he prefers Gull. It's more hands-on than a legate, and it's less pretentious than the other alternatives. President, emperor, first minister, emissary, and I'm thinking, ooh, that's a burn right there. But Sisko goes,
that's a burn.
How about Dominion puppet? And I'm like, ooh, ouch. Yikes. I don't know if he's going to heal from that.
Burst that bubble. Yeah, he said, don't get the big head over here. I'm going to remind you that I don't bow down to you the way you think everyone should. But then when he says Dominion puppet, then you see Weyoun come in and you think, well, he's a puppet for this guy or for these guys, right? Because they're in control at this point. The hierarchy, he answers to them, they answer to the founders, and and the way this thing is working. So I love Combs' performance. I did feel a slight change, but they kind of explained it the way you see, like in the movie The Terminator, where the new T-1000 would come out, and then this was the new Terminator, and this is the new version, except that they all look the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a brilliant play with the limits of science fiction, which are boundless. You can play with those kinds of concepts, and you can also throw it away so casually as well, where it's it's like, come on, that's old news.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe the episode started for me. That's when I perked up when I saw Jeffrey Combs. I said, okay, all right, let me back on. Because I was doodling, and the first half I was like, come on, like I get it, the guy's dying, and this, and they kind of had the interplay with Bajorans and Cardassians played out before, like this kind of enemies but friends type of deal. Mm-hmm. They played that subject line when they played Ducat's daughter. And they, her being half Bajoran, and the kind of relationship that he had with this woman, and so they touched upon how closely they've interacted before culturally, and it wasn't such a surprise because they've already delved into these kinds of subject matter. So when I see that playing out again, it's not like, oh wow, Bajorans and the Cardassians were working together, and then there was this resistance movement, and there was this people working together and trying to have same common goals. That kind of seems like what was played out with Dukat and his daughter, and other episodes. I think the one you just mentioned earlier, where Kira was playing undercover and all of that stuff. So,
by the way, speaking of that, just real quick, and I know we're kind of bouncing around a bit, but did you notice another character that from previous episodes that came back? That was the character Frizzell. He was in the flashbacks when Kira was remembering, and the big guy pulls in her father, and he's like, Kira, your dad or whatever. That was the guy that was missing an arm later on in her resistance cell when she went and met Shakar, I think it was the first time, or whoever it was. And then the armless guy and a lady show up later in a more recent episode where Kira goes on her revenge path after they get killed. So it was nice to see this guy getting more work, even though he's been killed, but they can go on the past. And I remember thinking that I bet if that actor were not available, they could have just chosen the actress that was, it could have been any of the 2 or 3 people that were in her previous cell. Because I remember thinking that's really cool that they have these little bits to where they say, hey, we can bring back a character that we've used and we like, and I'm always looking for those kind of things for the actors. Because, the actors are super happy when their character's dead. And 3 months later, they get a call. They're like, can you come back? And they're like, I don't know how, but sure, I'd love to. What a deal. I thought my days were over, but Frizzell is back and now he's happy. Okay, never mind.
Okay, yeah.
Come on,
we'll just let that slide.
Clap along. No.
But I'll say that it is a great attention to detail. I want to credit the writers for making sure that they, kept the continuity in that department. I thought that's, it's great for the actor to work, but it's also great that the writers kept the continuity and make sure that, you see people that you're familiar with. And
it's good for the fans.
It's good for the fans. It just makes it so that it's not just a production that's just going and rolling along and they don't care, bring in the next actor. It's also about, we're building stories, we're building these community of characters, and we're going to keep them involved in different ways. So I think that's just a credit also to the writers who are thoughtful enough to do that.
So I was happy about that. I was happy to see Weyoun back, and I'm always happy to see Dukat. I was happy to see Tekeni Gamor back, because that's just an expansion of a character. That's growth in a character that we maybe thought was never going to be back. And it was great to see Frizzell back, although his is spelled, I think, Furel, something like that. I don't know if we've ever seen Kira's father before. I think that was the first time. And then there was another guy that was tending to her father. I feel like those were first timers, at least to my memory. And when you were talking about, the Cardassians and Bajorans, and we've definitely explored that to death. And when you're talking about these other examples, the one that's popping in my head is when Kira was pulling the spike out of Dukat's butt. Remember? And they kind of had like a little rom-com moment,
Oh yeah, that was.
I'll never forget that one. Forever ingrained in my head. But I will say that when I first watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine back in the day, what I remember my feelings being way back in the day was, okay, I don't really care too much about the Bajoran lore and the Bajoran culture any more than I do any of the other aliens. And I remember thinking that Deep Space Nine explored the Bajoran stuff a lot. And it wasn't necessarily what I looked forward to. I looked forward to like the battles and the Dominion and all these kind of things. But now upon the rewatch, I really appreciate it much more. And I don't know if it's because I knew what to expect, or if it's just because, now I'm a different person than I was when I watched it, whatever it was 20 years ago. But now I really see the correlations. I mean, we get it. We understand what inspired these storylines and these angles, 25 years ago, and how they could have been written 200 years ago for things that happened hundreds of years ago. And they could be written today, because of the corollaries that there are still today. And I think a lot of that is what makes it stand the test of time for me. And I actually appreciate it more, but also because, for me personally, now I know a lot of these actors as friends, or at least as acquaintances. And it really blows me away how good they are. Really, before it would kind of, when I first watched it, it would begin and end with Gul Dukat and Wei Yun and Sisko as well, and then later on Nog really kind of stood out to me, and Dax, but then now as time goes on, I'm just like, dude, every one of them. Nana blows me away. Renee playing Odo blows me away. Everybody loves Max and Armin, you know what I mean? So maybe that's what it is. But anyway, it was just interesting to hear your thoughts on, another Bajorn thing, because I'm like, I've been there.
Yeah, and I don't have any bias against the Bajorn story. It's just that I felt like this is a kind of a recycle of several different episodes.
Interesting.
Mixed in together. Even with Duet, we saw a lot of these kinds of topics coming out, right? And there was a lot of this back and forth between this is my point of view and this is your point of view. And in this case, unless I think the stakes should have been higher for me, I felt like if this Tekeni Lofton guy had
nice. Very good. Very good.
No, if this Tekeni guy, if he had some kind of secret knowledge about something that Dukat does not want anybody to know about, that will weaken his, image or whatever. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's like something Dukat did that was actually good, right? Or, he did this, he saved these people, or he did this, whatever good act, or, he gave this person burial rights, or I don't know, whatever, something good that he did that he would be ashamed about being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would see the stakes a little bit higher. It just felt like the secrets he was giving up were just like, okay, I didn't see like any real, anything really there, because he's part of the resistance, so everybody else in the resistance knows some piece of this story too. It's not like he was a one-man mercenary out there and he's like, let me tell you what I found out while I was doing my Rambo thing. He was working with people, and there were people fighting alongside him, and so and she even refers to him going back to join the Cardassian resistance at some point and being the leader, right? She was initially, when he showed up, she's like, I'm going to plug you with these people, then, you'll fit in perfectly. You can be their leader, because they're continuing to fight, and he's like, I'm dying. And then, that shut that option down really quickly.
And I feel like we kind of saw that coming, right? Because you've got to raise the stakes. Yeah. You got to make something pop up right away. And we do have to jump onto our break in just a second here, but everybody stick around, because Cirroc's got a lot more to say on this, I could tell. And I've got a lot, and I got to catch up with his Tekeni Lofton joke, like when he played music and he was Tekeni G, or what's his name? Tekeni Gamor, right? So his brother's name is Sodom, and if you eat him as a crispy snack, he's Gamor's. But anyway,
wow, you got it, man. This guy's quick.
When you did the Tekeni Lofton, I was like, damn it, why didn't I think of that? That's too good. Anyway, so we'll be right back. We're going to talk about a lot of great stuff on the Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton, the man, the myth, the legend. Very quickly, there were actually only a few trivioids for me today. This was a fairly easy one. Dax thinks Cardassians like their politics complex. Kira is the closest thing to family that Tekeni Gamor has left. Tekeni Gamor, actually, his name is Kenny G. Why didn't we think of that? Anyway, Kenny Gamor has Yaram Fel syndrome. Gul Dukat's most powerful enemy is Gul Trapar, the head of the Fourth Order. And of course, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You killed Kenny. That was just one of the secrets that Gamor was telling. See, you were saying, what's the big deal about all his secrets? That's the big deal. Now we know Gul Dukat's most powerful enemy.
Okay. I didn't even catch that. His most powerful. What was his name? Gul
Trapar. And then he also said, in relation to Gul Trapar, that. Well, I took a lot of notes on this one. Head of the Fourth Order. And that Trapar's aide is a man named Glenn Borvin, a political opportunist. So I guess that's NAMS for them. Non-appearance mentions, everybody. Anyway, sorry. So you were saying before the break?
I was going to say that Bashir's hair looked really poofy when I first saw him on the screen.
Like a Q-tip.
Did you notice that?
I did notice that. As soon as you mentioned Bashir's hair, yeah. A little poof.
Because it was just extra, it was like higher up and had more like volume and puff to it. So I was thinking, I was like, wow, is this a hair change moment? Or is this just a different hairstylist? Or there was something to the hair, Bashir's hair. It slightly changed from what I remember it last. So that was my walk away from the first half of this episode. I was like, that's my only note.
Okay, can we see your doodles, by the way? We got to have a moment here where we're looking at the Cirroc's doodles.
This it's bad when this is a doodle, when you write this this right here. You make a little that's when that was me in the first half of this, drawing stop signs and stuff. So I wasn't overwhelmed in the beginning, but like I said, it started to pick up when Yoon popped in. I did like a couple of the lines in the beginning part where Kenny G is talking about Kira having her own section in the Cardassian Central Archives. I think that kind of impressed her a little bit. There was a moment where she was like slightly pleased by that. I felt like, okay, I've ruffled enough feathers.
I got my own chapter.
Yeah, good. It's like, okay, that's good. That's good to know. Like I pissed enough people off where I've got a whole section dedicated to the kind of ass whooping I've been given. So I like that that little line that they threw in there. And it also kind of catered to Kira's ego a little bit, right? Like, do you know how, you're legendary to that, to this extent. There was also, there were many moments in this one. When Dukat comes in to talk to Kenny G, Gamor. When he goes in and talk to Gamor with Wei-Yun, because Wei-Yun is like, well, let's ask him, let's ask him if he wants to stay here or if he wants to go. And Sisko, I guess, obliges, and they go to visit him in, inside of the medic bay. Kira is standing there by his side. And you get to see a moment in which Dukat, who is the almighty, the highest ranking, the powerful one, you get to see him confront Gamor, and I really liked the way Gamor stood up to Dukat. It wasn't fully all out, I'll kick your behind type stuff. It was more like, I'm not bending to your wishes and your will, and move along. That was a big moment for me, and I liked the way Kira gave him a look. She was so pleased with that. She was so happy when she saw Gamor standing up and telling Dukat to go kick rocks. She kind of gave this one moment where she's like, I'm so proud of you right now. I love the way you just handled that. And it was a subtle moment. It just was maybe 2 seconds on camera, but it just let me know, wow, Nana is so fantastic at delivering these kind of accentuations and moments in her performance. She's so good at just giving you that unwritten, unspoken, just all facials and communicating the message that she wants to give. And I think in this particular moment, the pride that she had in Gamor, the way she was looking at Gamor and saying, you know, you are like my dad, you know, because you're fearless and you'll stand up to anybody the same way that I will. And you give Dukat just as much crap as I give him. So I think there was a moment there which was unspoken that really translated that kind of moment, that energy for me.
Mm-hmm. You know, there are a lot of moments in this episode that Nana Visitor, our good friend playing Kira, delivered not just well, but my favorite thing, which is well and differently than I would have expected. You know, a lot of times, you know, I kind of find myself and catch myself studying other actors. And when they do something that's a little different than what I would have presumed or what I would naturally think is obvious if I were reading the script, you know, when you see the lines, you know, you usually kind of get an idea of how you want to deliver them. And a lot of times, you know, great actors do things differently and well. And one of those lines was when Kira, and I think maybe it's just because we're used to Kira being strong, but not just strong, but also kind of aggressive strength, you know, like anger, like fist pounding, you know. And in this episode, she was not fist pounding strong. She was, you know, a quiet, hurt strength, you know, which is harder to portray. And one of the lines that she delivered when Odo was asking her, I think it was Odo was asking her if she wants to, no, I think it was maybe Bashir, if she wanted to go talk to him or go visit him in his dying deathbed. And she says, I said no, don't ask me again. And the way she delivered that, I would have expected her to say, I said no, don't ask me again, like snapping at him. But she didn't. She did it very like, you know, lightly, but, you know, obviously with the strength that her character always had. And she just said, you know, don't ask me again. Like she doesn't need to yell. At this point, it's the 5th season. She doesn't need to yell. She doesn't need to pound her fist. She's just saying, don't ask me again. Anyway, obviously I'm not even going to try to deliver it the way that she did, but it was a different way. And I really liked it. And there were a few of those lines that she did, because this was, to me, the softest side of Kira that we've seen in 5 seasons. There was a lot, and the first half was a lot of big, beautiful, bright smiles and happiness. And she's so happy to see a Cardassian and loving him and just pride and joy. Then she's holding a baby. And it was very different, you know, than what we saw in season 1, or even just a few episodes ago when she's going on a revenge tour. But then the second half is the sad, you know, quiet strength that she had. Anyway, so I just thought that this is worth noting that it's a very different side of Kira that we saw all episode long.
Yeah, and just to highlight another kind of moment that, you know, stood out to me, the scene that I mentioned earlier where Dukat visits Gamor inside of the infirmary. Gamor says to Dukat, I would have been all right if you hadn't betrayed us to the Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
That was the line he gave, right? And Jeffrey Combs was standing there next to Dukat as he's saying, "Oh, you betrayed Cardassia to the Dominion," and Combs does a head turn. He does one of these like interesting that's the way some people feel about this, you
Yeah.
know?
He's
And
thinking, what a
it isn't-
loser. He doesn't,
Yeah.
the Dominion is where it's at, dude.
Yeah.
Get with it.
And the look he gives and the way he tilts his head, he has no line in that moment. But I was just looking at Jeffrey Combs like, this guy's not delivering a line. The scene is, the actual words are directed towards Ducat.
Totally.
He's not talking to Wei. He doesn't even know who the hell Wei Yun is, probably. But he's talking to Ducat. But the way Wei Yun reacts is like, interesting. What an idiot. He has no idea how good it is on this side. That was a moment. And the other Wei Yun moment that I thought was great was when Sisko was insisting that they drink the dinar. Was it
Dinar,
the
yeah.
The dinar?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, drink this. And he wouldn't drink it. He refused to. I don't drink on an empty stomach. And it turns out it was poison and it was sent to Gamor so that he could die. And, of course, Ducat knows nothing about it. But Wei Yun, again, Jeffrey Combs delivers this line where he says, how delightful.
Yeah.
The mysterious plots, the subtle innuendos, the veiled threats, and he's so intrigued. It's all so entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like he's studying it. Yeah.
He was studying the two of them going back and forth. And I love that observation. I love the way he delivered the line. And it was just, he was so expressive in his face as well. Like you could just see, like it was like I felt like he was a kid seeing something for the first time and really just soaking it all in and like, wow, this is like, oh, so you put that over there and then eat this and then the water comes out, right? It's like, that's how it is. Oh, interesting. This is how you guys back and forth. This is the dance that you guys dance when you're interacting. And I'd love to jump in at some point because I have so much to offer, right? So then he does jump in and drinks the poison himself and gives us more information about the Vorta, which is, their poison-proof immune system, right?
Right. Yeah.
So another glorious performance, another subtle but very glorious performance.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that because it does, it does just make you love Wei Yun and Jeff Combs and the Vorta more when you see lines like this. And big shout out and kudos to Robert Hewitt Wolf, our good friend, for writing that line in that way, the one that you recited about, the innuendos and all that, because that is one that is so juicy that we like, as fans, we like glom onto. We're like, ooh, that's yum, 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 yum. We just want to eat it up and rewind it a bunch of times because it's such a juicy line.
It is because it tells the truth. And we like when people expose, what we're seeing in front of us and just tell it like it is, plain and simple. And I thought that's what he kind of pointed out so brilliantly in that line.
Mm-hmm. Another great line, and there were some funny lines, obviously, like the one you're mentioning, and when he drinks the Canar and the reaction from Ducat. I think Ducat just makes a noise. I think he just goes like, oh, or something like that. But another line that, really was delicious was when Ducat comes in. He says, Major, sorry to disturb you. And she says, sorry enough to leave. Like, bless you. And then the other line that was later in there was when Kira says to Ducat, you're really enjoying this. And he says, I must admit, I do get a certain perverse pleasure out of all this. And just the way he really emphasized perverse. I do get a certain perverse pleasure.
Yeah. He did. He's so creepy when he wants to be. But I was going to talk about that same scene as well, because in that scene, Kira throws her mug at it.
Yeah,
and it misses his head, right? And he stands there calmly, like, ooh, I like that. Like, give me more.
Give me Gamor.
Yes, his perverse pleasures are being fulfilled. But she says to him in that moment, she says, I promise you, Ducat, I will make you pay for all of this one day. And his answer is, you talk about how people deliver lines.
Yes.
Maybe, but not today. That was his response. He twisted the maybe just enough where he put a little, spice on it, like maybe.
That's a little reminiscent of Lord of the Rings line that is just such a glorious line, where, he's doing the speech of, he's saying there will be a time when the lineage of, it's right before a great battle, when the lineage of men will die, and when men are destroyed and the orcs take over and all this stuff. He says, but it is not this day. Right. Now I'm starting to think it might be Game of Thrones. So I feel like it's what's his name in Lord of the Rings. So, but this episode of Deep Space Nine precedes that movie by a good few years. So yeah, it's just reminiscent.
So we didn't steal that.
Right.
We didn't steal that from anybody, but no, there's, you mentioned Mr. Wolf, Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolf, these words, the way they phrase it, the dialogue, it brings a lot of this stuff to life. Now, they say they credited the story to Mr. Edmund Newton and Robin L. Slocum.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we don't know like what elements of the story were, when they pitch these ideas, they might say, hey, yeah, we're bringing back Gamor, he's dying and he has these secrets to give. And it's a very general kind of overall view that they use and say, okay, you get credited for the story. We're going to use your idea. But somebody like Robert Hewitt Wolf has to take that very general thing and bring it to life with these scenes and, write out the dialogue so that we actually have something. And there were moments where, like you said, some of these speeches were really good and the dialogue was rich. I, for example, liked when Kira said, her father is this is the flashback scene where her father is on the deathbed and they're like, oh, we found the place, we're going to go attack. And she says, well, I'm coming with you. And they're like, well, what about your father? You got to stay here with him, right? Her answer was, they didn't shoot Gant's father. Like, Gant's coming with us, Ganton's going to come instead of you. Why don't you just stay here with your father? And her answer was, they didn't shoot Gant's father. They shot mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going in there. And I thought, like, even just that one simple line, that is, that's powerful. That's something that somebody would actually say in the moment.
Right. And that leads me to the next point, which is the end kind of gave us the point of the episode. I hope I put in my notes, which was Kira admitting that the reason she left when her dad was dying, it wasn't a mistake that, oh, I just happened to miss when he was dying. She's finally admitting to herself. She says, my father was my strength. I couldn't stand to see that strength slipping away. So I ran. And that's when whether she fully realizes it or she admits it to herself, but we definitely realized then, oh, it wasn't, happenstance. It's that she did not want to be there when her dad died, which is exactly why she decided to go see Gamor when he died, was to kind of make up for that thing. And that's what you kind of expect when there are constant flashbacks in an episode, that this episode is going to heal or right the wrong that was done in whatever the flashback is, that person lives at that moment and they need to address it in this moment.
And I'm glad you highlighted that, because I think ultimately that's the big takeaway from this episode. And that's why I rate the second half of it differently than the first, because the second half is where we get these kinds of nuggets and these jewels inside of the performance. For me, like, coping with death, and somebody that you love. And, she mentioned my father is my strength. Well, that's the same as Jake. That's how Jake feels.
Yeah.
His father is his strength, right? And all of us feel that way to some degree or another about somebody close to us in our family. That's the pillar of the family. That's my rock. When when all else, fails, at least I know I can go to this person and they'll bring that stability and ground me and get me back on the right track. And so we all have that. And that's why Star Trek really appeals to so many people, because you can watch an episode like this and feel that same kind of, emotions, because you may have suffered, faced those same fears.
Totally.
You may have been in those same situations, and, so I thought this is what gave the episode a big redeeming quality for me. Afterwards, I was like, oh, this is a great episode. And certainly the last scene that Kira gives, where she gives that speech that you mentioned, is, the pinnacle of not just the performances, of all of the performances of the episode, but also just of what the episode is about.
Mm-hmm.
Coping with loss, how to cope with loss, trying to wrong the rights of the past. And we all have kind of faced those situations to some degree or another, or will face those situations one day. So it's inevitable.
Right. Yeah. There were some lines in there that really made me think, boy, these are going to touch a lot of people. Like the last breath line, that was really powerful. I had to write that one down. He'd force another breath and then another every time she thought it was the last line. But we do only have 1 minute left. So very quickly, here we go. Big money.
Uh-oh, here it comes, ladies and gentlemen.
It's time for the nitpick, you son of a bitch. You damn it. Damn it, Will.
Okay. Kira gives Gamora a grave, and it seems to be a bench next to the grave, and the only way to sit on that bench is to walk over the grave. Bajorans have weird customs. Actually, you can see it right here. See, look, there's like a bench, and the only way to get to that bench is by walking on the grave. There should be a second nitpick, because I forgot who delivered the line in The Lord of the Rings, and that's at me. Ryan, you should have remembered that was obviously Aragorn, son of Arathorn, a.k.a. Strider, played by Viggo Mortensen, the king of men, who delivered that line in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Oh, wow. I'm going to give it a little bit above average, I would say about a 7.3, 7.4 in that zone.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
Let's see. We are going to go here very quickly. We're going to the free-for-all in just a second to everybody. But before we do, let the record show that Cirroc Lofton gets another perfect score. Look at that.
Oh.
7.3 on IMDb. This guy knows, he knows the fans. He knows the fans. All right.
Right on
the money. Very special thanks to our good friends and favorite humans, some of our most favorite. That's the one. Carmen. Well, you got to memorize. Carmen Shamwell, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan. Yvette Blackmon, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Marie Segal, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Tim Baum, Titus Mohler, John Mann, Mark Roco, and Darlena Marie. We'll see you on the other side. On the free-for-all, always remember the seventh rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule. This is the free-for-all with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We are joined by and with TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. We've got Malissa Longo out in Southern California somewhere. Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy. And Eve England out somewhere in Wales, in a place I can't really pronounce other than Wales.
Wales will do.
Yeah. Have you seen the names of like the roads in Wales? It's insane.
No, give us an
Like
example.
Klingon.
What?
Yeah,
We're
give
not
us,
getting a stand-up routine.
Eve, can you tell us a few, in the Welsh pronunciation, a few of the roads that we might think are peculiar in Wales?
Well, the town I live in, the Welsh way of saying it is Castell Nedd. So there's lots of and sounds. So it is very Klingon in its sounding. So the Klingons will get on well here.
Steve, I think your universal translator is broken.
Yeah. All right. That's
I love your grape juice. You guys have no, Ryan, you got that?
No, I got that's an A+.
Gosh.
That's an A+.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Oh, Homer, I got a wow from Homer. All right.
There we go.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry, it's Ryan. It's rubbing off on me. I can't help it.
You've got to
Finally.
distance yourself.
I've got a quarantine.
One thing we did not mention in the previous segments were the non-appearance mentions. Sometimes it's fun to see if you guys caught the non-appearance mentions, besides some of the characters that had never really been mentioned before. I caught 3. Did you, Homer can't think of it. Oh,
I have one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Shakar.
Yep. Anybody else got one?
I thought Keiko was one.
Right.
Keiko.
Well, the O'Briens together.
The O'Briens.
Well, no, but Miles was in one of the scenes, right? Just when he said, like at the very beginning, when he said something was hailing them, or the guy was arriving.
Yeah.
That was it. I think that was his only scene, though. Yeah. The other one, I'm not really sure if it counts as a NAM, was Ileana, because she was mentioned before, but do we ever really get to know her? I don't know.
We've never met her.
Well, we never met Cousin Gala until an episode or 2 ago, and he's had like 6 or 7 NAMs.
But there was the one Maquis episode where I said there is a non-appearance mention of the one guy, but you said we'd never met him. But then all these other people get non-appearance mentions that we never meet. So why didn't he get that too?
Yeah, Ryan. I
because it's too much work.
Should have accumulated any NAMs until he has appeared.
Well, that's what's cool about.
Somebody remind me who Ileana is, though.
Ileana was the Cardassian lady that Kira was supposedly playing when she became Cardassian. So,
daughter.
Yeah. So,
I had one that I'm not sure was actually a NAM or not. What about Wayne 4? Because he did say.
Oh, that's very good. What a deep cut.
That is good.
Oh, yes.
That's legit.
I don't know if that counts. They didn't actually say, I don't know if they said Wayne 4. They just said that was my speed. Oh, they did they? Because I know they said something.
That is a
he said the 4th.
He just found the technicality in there.
He called him the 4th Wayoon, and he said, I'm the 5th Wayoon. Dude, that's Melissa, sorry, we have to ask Melissa if this is allowed.
No, I'm just saying keep it consistent, because if Neprem gets the non-appearance mention too, Zial's mother, but we never meet her either, then all the other people that we never meet should get it too.
Okay, I'm putting in Neprem then.
No, but you've already put her in. You've already put her in. Yes.
Maybe on the fake list. I don't see her on mine.
I disagree. NAMs don't start until there's been an appearance.
Oh, until you actually see them?
Yeah.
So then Cousin Gala doesn't get those appearance mentions.
Not until he's mentioned later, if he is.
Homer's a hard ass.
Come on, it's a non-appearance. Yeah.
Well, let's just point out today that Homer is wearing an awesome Captain Picard shirt by Walking Art made by Melissa. I'm going to spotlight it so everybody can check it out. It's a cool Picard silhouette.
What is this?
what does that say? I can't read it because it's backwards.
Make it so.
Brian, thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful. You can find that in the description box below, guys. If you want to get an awesome shirt made by Malissa, go to walkinartmadebymelissa.com in the description box below. I'm wearing an awesome, as you know, Abyssinian kiosk shirt. We already mentioned that, but look at Eve England's incredible colors of the exact same design. I believe it's the Sisko Kid. It's in blue and white.
And I've got Melissa's bracelet as well, the DS9 binary code bracelet.
Awesome.
Awesome sauce.
So cool. Melissa, I'm guessing. Go ahead, Homer.
I saw a mention, you had posted something not so long ago about Abyssinian kiosk, and there's one that has a color combination. It's kind of like candy corn.
Yeah.
Yes. I just ordered mine, so I was hoping it might come next week and I can wear that. But yeah, they're live on the website now, so you can get those.
Halloween is just around the corner, so perfect time to get one. Yep.
Definitely.
Hang on, I got to pull that up. I believe we retweeted that. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so everybody that is listening at home, just trust us. This is cool. Everybody that's watching, check it out.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I see.
Good job, Eve England out in Wales. Evie England. She never knows what her Twitter handle is.
I'll remember now. No, I'm very excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting.
So Eve, you designed that one, right? I think that's custom design of your request.
Yeah, it was a request last year, and I got a mug last year, but I didn't have a t-shirt. So I thought, I need a t-shirt as well. So yeah, your sister kindly mocked one up and did it really fast. So I've got it in the heather grey, but it comes in a selection of different colors as well. So you can choose.
Awesome.
Wow. So guys, get it in purple, because that's another Halloween color. Could be fun. So Melissa, you're wearing a goodie made by you, probably?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chat pack. Boy, oh boy, we've got so many good things for you guys. Everybody at home. So check those out. Let's talk about the episode a little bit more. Cirroc, I feel like there was more stuff that we hadn't covered. Do you remember what it was? Oh, yeah, the Avery's directing. So there were a couple things that stood out to me as far as Avery's directing, and I don't know if you guys have anything to jump in with as well, but one was the montage. Oh, wow, Melissa and I have the same background. One was the montage. There was like this montage of Kira taking care of Gamor, and I thought that was a good montage. It was nice. The music was great. It was very Star Trek. He wasn't doing anything crazy or trying to add too much of his own flavor. Sometimes people get a little too creative. I thought that was good. The other one kind of probably fell more into stunt coordinating, but it was, as you mentioned, when Kira throws that cup at Dukat and he goes like this, but then behind him, it like explodes behind him. I'm like, there's some significant coordinating going on there, you know, and the good camera angle. And it actually made me kind of think, how did they do that without, you know, knowing that none of the pieces are going to fly back and hit him, or maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I think the wig is protective.
Yeah.
It's a bike helmet.
Yeah, all that padding.
It's too bad they don't
you on that.
wear. Remember the first helmets that they wore on the Next Generation? The first time we saw them, too bad.
Mark Alimo was in Next Generation too.
Right.
Yeah.
Too bad he didn't hang on to that helmet if he got hit in the head.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to too many things, but I did see that montage scene. I think maybe also some of the ways that Kira may have softened up certain things in her performance. We talked about it a little bit. I think maybe that was probably drawn out of her in some way by Avery. I'm not saying this for sure, but I'm just, suggesting that it's possible that he may have asked her to go, softer in this way or a little bit different in this one way. because there were moments there that I felt like she looked exhausted and she wasn't as fiery as she normally is. She was more like semi-defeated in some ways, and like, you know, like really going through this emotional challenge of trying to cope with all of this. So I did see a slightly different Kira than I normally am used to seeing.
But I think you would see a different Kira because she would be all of those things in this episode. She's been she's been looking after somebody for more than 30 hours straight. And that takes a toll out of you. Having, nursed somebody back to health myself, it takes a toll out of you. It's draining. So your energy level is going to be different. The way you look at things is going to be different. Exhaustion is going to change you in ways you never thought it would. So, yeah, it would have an impact or effect on one's character.
Yeah, and the companion does say that Nana did have some experience of caretaking and did draw from that. And I was
really?
looking at, yeah, and I think a lot of the people involved sort of had some experience in some of these topics that they were discussing. And to the point about Avery directing Nana, apparently it doesn't give details, but just says that Avery did give a personal story which was relatable to this particular situation. And that sort of helped them to draw on the emotions and the different challenges of that. And actually another point, it's funny that you just made those 2 points, and they're the two sort of main points they've flagged in here. But Avery was really pleased with how that montage scene ended up. He said what he was trying to get at is that it was basically a montage of different portraits, and he was very specific that he was trying to capture, an oil painting or a painted portrait rather than a photographic portrait, and really try to get those different angles and the different lighting, etc., to do those. So I think I think it does, and like I said, it comes across as very dramatic and quite different to anything that we've sort of seen before. So that seemed to be quite different.
Yeah, I really got that with the lighting. That's interesting. That's so cool. That companion is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yes, I need that in my life.
And you can see it. It does look like an oil painting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
TJ, do you have any thoughts on this episode, by the way?
I do. I thought interesting was the contrast, like the picture behind you now, where past Kira has like this extra fiery, bright red hair, and that's how we know it's the past Kira and not the present Kira. I mean, obviously there's different hairstyle, but I thought that was a nice touch to, kind of set, those two apart, while she's acting, and both of those things. It's not a flashback from another episode. This is her acting like the same week. So she was able to look different and give, a little bit of a different performance from the younger Kira. And we're able to see that. The second is I got a director question, and I think we were kind of touching on, how different directors, kind of have different styles of how they interact with the actors. And so, Cirroc, I was wondering if the production staff accepted or was responsive to feedback from the cast as to directors that worked really well with the group and ones that maybe didn't work so well.
Yeah, I mean, if you piss the wrong people off in a production, then you're going to jeopardize future employment, and that goes all the way up and down the board. So, unless you're the star, but even the star of the show can piss somebody off and get that plug pulled. We saw that with Charlie Sheen. It didn't stop them from replacing him. Right. So there's certain limits for everybody. But yeah, if you rub people the wrong way, if you disrespect the wrong people, or try to show up other people, remember the director's coming in there. They have to work with the cameraman and the director photographer, who's always there, right? And the director's only there for that one episode, so they have to have some kind of synergy with those people as well. Because if you're messing with the DP, well, he's there all the time, so he's going to be like, I didn't like working with this guy, and he was a pain in the ass. But there's also actors that could have that same experience. If you call an actor out of his name and you're like, "Hey, you," and you just talk to somebody all disrespectfully, without giving them the kind of courtesy that you would just under normal circumstances, then yeah, you could find yourself on the do not call back list. And I believe that there's been instances of that, none that I am direct witness to, but there have been instances of that. So yeah, you just want to make sure that you get along with everybody, you have a good energy, good rapport. And that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier before we started recording, was how endearing Jonathan Frakes was. I felt like he was loved by everybody, and he had this kind of respect from the crew and the cast, and he was like the guy you want to go drink a beer with after you finish work. And it was like you want to, he just had that kind of man's man, ladies man, all man type of personality.
Borns man, everything.
Everything, Ferengis man.
He was a non-binaries man in one episode.
Everything. He's just very endearing and likable, and you get that. You also get some people that are very set in their ways, and they think that they're there to order you around and have this real tunnel vision about things, and they don't want to discuss things with you. It's got to be this way, and they're not open to interpretation or to your input, or at least pretending to be. So those people slowly but surely find themselves not working on whatever show, and they have to move on and find a place where they're more welcome.
Find a place where they're more welcome. That's such a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go. But then there's also, like I was talking about with Avery, there's actors that have such an insight on, I'm glad that Eve, you brought up the fact that he was doing this portrait thing, because it kind of puts in context what kind of preparation is going on in Avery's head when he's reading this script and he's saying, okay, he's not thinking I'm just going to do a montage. He's like, I need famous portraits of moments, and I need to do research on these different things, and I'm going to shoot it like this and light it like this, and so he's putting so much thought into these things. So when he does get to the set and share that personal story that you mentioned, that the companion talks about, he's coming from such a personal, intimate place. He's like, he's wed himself to the script in this very intimate way, where he has visualized the shots, he has put a metaphor to the story, he has personalized it, and he's able to translate that to the other actors so that they can say, oh yeah, I see what you mean. It's like when you're facing this kind of a situation, and when it's like this, and this is how you would be, and you wouldn't be so angry, you would be more sad, and you would be like this. And those kinds of insight really helps an actor in their performance. It just makes it a lot easier if I know, okay, this is what you're looking for. You're not looking for this. You're looking for more like this, and these are the reasons why. Then it makes it easier for me to understand if I can put it in that kind of a context.
Okay, yeah. That was your directing lesson of the day. You know what I was thinking too, Cirroc, real quick, and I know Homer's got some ideas on this episode as well, but one thing I was thinking is, being that Avery was kind of like a father figure to you, especially on set, when when it was a day that Avery Brooks, Mr. Brooks, is actually going to be the director, did you kind of have a little bit of a sense of pride, it's kind of sticking your chest out a little bit more? Because I feel like if I had a good friend on set with me all the time, or if I had a father figure or something, and then this week, that guy happens to be the director, I don't know, I just kind of feel like, all right, this is going to be a good week. This is going to be a fun week. Remember, you put some respect on that, guys. Mr. Brooks is, remember, is that coffee warm? All right. Was there any of that, or was it just kind of business as usual?
No, it wasn't business as usual. What it was is more so than just like I'm feeling relaxed and I can, kick my feet up. Actually, I more like had the feeling of this person has my best interests at heart. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody has your best interests at heart, they're not going to make you look foolish. They're not going to put the worst of your look or performance out there. They're going to try to have you look as best as you can, and get the best out of you. So I know that if he says that was good, then it was good. If it's somebody that doesn't care about me, they'll say that's good just to continue to move on because, they've got a schedule to maintain and they don't want to have that conversation with me. Maybe they don't, I don't want to talk to them. Just let's keep it going. And that's good enough. We'll cut around it. We'll use the back of his head. Whatever,
hey, you might not be able to get away with as much. You're right. Because he knows you. He knows what you can do too.
He knows what I can do. He knows how to talk to me and bring the best out of me. And I know that he has my best interest at heart. So I'm not going to look foolish on the other end of the lens. It's not going to be an angle up my nose or, some weird, thing that makes me look, you know what I mean? I know that I'm going to have somebody who's trying to get the best shot out, try to get the best performance out of me. And I will trust his evaluation of whatever he thinks. When he says print, let's move on. Then I trust that he got what he needed, and it's going to make me look as good as possible. So that gives you the confidence. It's more of a confident thing than it is an arrogant thing. It's about, I have somebody who's looking out for me on the other end of that camera, who's watching the monitor and making sure I didn't blip anything, or my facial expression wasn't right, or I'm supposed to be crying, but it looked like I was laughing. He's going to make sure all of that stuff is weeded out before he prints anything. And that also means I'm going to have private conversations with him, because some directors like to do public conversations. And that's another aspect of directing that actors dislike. Yeah. They dislike having a public conversation about their performance. So if I did a bad job, or what you consider to be a bad job, or if I interpreted the scene in a way that you don't think was accurate, I, as an actor, prefer to be told that in a private setting. Take me to the side, and the director have a one-on-one conversation with you and say, I was looking at it and, I think you're playing it this way. I'd rather you play it more like this, and not so much, smiling in the beginning, because don't forget, this is what happened and you're playing it like this. Once you give me that kind of feedback on the side in private, I can take that information, I can take those notes and make the adjustment. When you publicly do that to somebody, and say, cut, Cirroc, you're killing me over here.
No, don't do that. Yeah. No, rule number one is never call somebody out publicly, because, you just don't want to, embarrass the person, unless it's Marie Segal showing up late right now. I think we just admitted her in. Who knows if her technology is going to let her in, but I was trying to time that perfectly, but it didn't work. She's struggling to get in, I guess. She was supposed to pop in right there.
You're killing me over here. Please deliver your line a little bit later. You're coming in too early. Back to the top.
Yeah, that's rule number one of comedy.
Sometimes directors do that. They'll they'll do that, and they'll leave you. They'll kind of embarrass you in front of a room full of people that are your colleagues that you're working with every day, and nobody wants to be embarrassed in any working situation or in any situation in general.
Well, especially because acting is such an intimate work, so it's really personal when you're performing something. So to be called out publicly like that it would be embarrassing for anybody. And that's not right.
It's not right. It's not right.
Yeah.
And there are directors that have done that and do that. And, sometimes it means it's the end of their days, depending on who they do it to, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there are directors that will publicly call you out and say, "Oh, that I didn't believe you," and this and that, and just really rip you a new one. And that's not fair to the actor. You should always take them to the side, have that conversation with them in private, until you have reached the self-sealing stem bolt level of public scrutiny. Then you deserve to be publicly scrutinized.
Then it's okay.
Because I've already given you 15 chances. And I've had 15 of those conversations with you, and you're not doing it. Now you're pissing me off, and I got to throw something or make a scene. And then you'll get it, maybe. So, but no, there's certainly exceptions to the rules, but for the most part, that's the best way. That's directorial etiquette.
So sometimes you have to make a scene to make a scene.
Very nice.
Sometimes you have to make a scene. Very good.
Let's write
Very
that
good.
down. TJism. Homer, do you have any
That's
thoughts
a very
on
good one.
today's episode?
I do.
I do.
A couple of observations, actually. And one of them I forgot. So this is going to be the more obscure, less relevant one. And I don't know if this was the director or if this was the actor, but Gamor on his bed there, and we're cutting back to him, and his illness has progressed. And there's this close-up scene of him, and there's this spittle connecting his top teeth and bottom teeth together. I'm like, whoa. First off, I don't know why I even noticed that, but I did. And then I'm like, how did they have that there for so long? Because it was there for like 5 seconds. It seemed like forever. It's like, okay, that's either commitment or that's directing. I'd be curious to know, like, hey, who said you should have that spittle there like that? Did you do that? I don't even know what you call it. A saliva strip? Ooh,
Yeah, a friend.
Spittle.
Did anybody else notice that?
Yeah, see, I watch for
I didn't notice it, but what does the companion say about that?
So I have the companion as well, and it did not mention
It's
it.
that level of detail, sadly. No, so
No.
we'll never know.
Okay.
We'll never know. No.
Nothing.
No mention of the spittle.
No.
No, I have no idea. I think that was probably a naturally. My guess is that it's a naturally occurring thing, and it just worked well with the scene. I don't think they put that much attention to detail.
How was the lighting
Today,
on
on
it?
the seventh rule, we talk spit. I think they could have done a better job lighting it, to be honest. Yeah. I think it could have glistened more.
Spittle, taste the rainbow, right?
Yeah. Could have been something. There could have been like this.
Listening.
There was something else. Maybe it'll come to me, but I promise you, it's not on the same level as spittle.
Okay.
Anne Marie, your thoughts on spittle?
Speechless.
That's a no.
Yeah.
No, that's a no on that. There was a moment there where Quark tries to sell Kira on some drinks. I think he says Frosty Bajoran Ale, Black Hole, right? He's like, you want one of those? And he can see, she's like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. And I like the way he was like, yeah, warm Enyaq's milk, right? I think that's what he was talking about. But it was a small moment, but it just, I liked it. He was like, you'll get a good night's sleep. You know, it was like, instead of giving her a shot of tequila, maybe she needs some Pepto-Bismol or something. You know, it's like it was like the good side of his bartending skills, as opposed to his, you know, the bad side of him trying to upsell and get you wasted so you can keep buying drinks. It was like he knew what she needed at that moment, and he was like, "You need some Enyaq's milk. That'll put you to sleep, you know, and it'll be good. You have a good night's sleep." I like that. It was a small thing, but I like Cork's thoughtfulness in that moment.
Enyaq's milk can be found in Iceland, right? What were you saying, Melissa? Thank you, Eve. Did you get that one, Eve?
Get that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a music joke.
That was a courtesy laugh. That's all.
Yeah.
That was very nice of you. Eve.
Very nice of you.
Thank you.
Don't encourage him.
Sorry, Melissa.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, it was a great character moment to show, you know, for Quark. It was a small moment, but it showed that he really knows how to read people. He's very good at his job, and he knows how to read people and what they need when they need it. It was subtle, but powerful to me anyway, too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Service industry, anticipate needs. Yep.
And maybe you guys can tell me, because it's slipping out of my mind. Was it the Enyaq's milk mug that Kira eventually threw at Ducat's head?
No, it's like
He's our mug expert.
It was like a teacup or something, wasn't it?
Okay. It was a teacup.
Well, was it short and stout?
It was.
Oh, boy.
Very nice.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
He was gonna pour him out.
I earned a reaction from Homer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Anne-Marie, do you have any thoughts on this episode?
Oh, it's amazing.
Shocking.
What did you rate it on IMDb?
10.
11.
11. 10. I love this one.
Yeah.
All right. So we got to go in a minute. Homer, did you happen to remember the other thing you wanted to say about this episode?
I did not, but actually I'll mention this even so. I was struck by the overhead view of Gamora on his cot or on his bed, and then Kira there. And I think in the companion it talks about that would be the viewpoint that he would have if you're picturing himself kind of like on his deathbed and like people are visiting him, a view from above. And I thought that was really well put together. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think that's about it for us. We do have to run. We've got a special mission for TJ coming up in just a moment. But before we go, we want to give a special thanks to Melissa, Homer, Eve, TJ, and Anne-Marie, finally, for joining us today and having some fun with us. It was a good time. And Cirroc, you gave us a lot of really cool director insights. That was a good time.
Oh, yeah. Even though I've never directed an episode.
Yet.
I just watched.
Yeah.
But I did write an episode.
Oh, yeah. The world's talking about it.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's getting passed around.
Italy just wrote an article about it.
Yes, twice, 2 Italy media companies did, right?
No, our friends at Talking Trek did.
Right, but wasn't there a second one that just did?
The other one was about Voyager documentary that I sent you.
Oh, right. Okay.
One so
Come on, Italians.
Yeah.
Hey, my Italians.
Yeah, we love. Let's give a shout out, by the way, to Talking Trek out in Italy, because we love these guys. Here is the article. Let me do
It's
a
really
quick
cute.
share.
From our friend Sophia.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I love the picture.
Me too.
I love the picture right there. Holy. Somebody brought Michael Jordan to the DS9 background.
Yeah.
You gotta love that.
It's amazing.
Right? Look at all that, Cirroc. Beautiful.
That's great.
Oh,
that's great.
Can anybody read Italian, by the way?
About this.
A little.
Oh, cool.
He wasn't telling me about the Italian version. He was telling me about.
Oh
another
yeah,
article
heavy.com wrote the first one.
Yeah. It's been getting
Definitely
passed around a little bit more recently. So yeah, special thanks to Heavy for that. But we do have a little place in our heart for Talking Trek as well.
Talking Trek.
But thanks to Heavy, thanks to Talking Trek, and thanks to all of you for joining us. That wasn't the best segue, but we got to go. We'll see you soon. Keep an eye on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays for us. Yep. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule. What was that?